Through the Gates is produced under the support of the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management to enhance, promote, and defend the North American model of wildlife conservation and responsible wildlife management. That's our mission. We're engaged in fighting at every level so that wildlife management remains science-based and conservation continues to work for our wildlife. To learn more and join the movement, visit SaveTheHuntColorado.com. The North American model of wildlife conservation is the greatest conservation model in the world. It's a success story that should be shared and celebrated because everybody is a part of it. Well, we got a special edition of Through the Gates to Save the Hunt. And today we're with Doug Barnes with Ovis Wildlife Taxidermy in Penrose, Colorado. Doug has been a great supporter of what Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management has done over the course of the last several years. Been in business for quite a while. He's a sportsman himself, provides a lot for the cause and the fight. And we're going to take a little bit of time and get into the background of taxidermy and try to see if we can maybe learn about what we've done wrong and what we should do right. So, Doug, I'll turn it over to you and introduce yourself and give a little bit of background about your business and lifestyle and stuff, and we'll get into the conversation.
All right. Well, I started taxidermy in 2001, actually right around the time of 9/11, believe it or not. I worked for Gary Bahachik up in Slida for a lot of years. That's where me and you first met.
Yep.
Long time ago.
Long time ago.
I worked for him for, I don't even know how long, 14 years, I believe. Then I moved down to this country and I worked for the state for a little bit, always doing taxidermy on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And once I could financially make it work, we opened up here in Penrose, 2019, built our shop, and we've been going ever since.
And you learned from a good taxidermist.
Yeah, he was a great taxidermist, especially back in the day.
Yeah.
Taxidermy's come so far now that it's just different now.
Yeah.
But for the time, he was exceptional.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got a very good foundation, and then I took it to another level by competing a lot more, learning new methods and stuff like that. I went and worked for a few friends of mine in some different shops and learned some different stuff. And I'm trying to fall into the path of Stuart Valentine back in the day. And, they were innovators.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to go down that path too. So we're working hard at it.
So what made you get into taxidermy to start with?
Well, I grew up with Gary's son, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
We went to school together, so I was always around Gary's shop. And it actually came to where his son and I were going to buy him out of his outfitting business. Mm-hmm. So we started moving down that road, and then I needed something to do the rest of the year. And Gary was always busy, so I started doing taxidermy, basically fell into his path. I had spent a lot of time with them growing up because my dad had died when I was 14. Mm-hmm. And Gary Bahachik, he was kind of a guy that, I wouldn't say he stepped into that role, but he was willing to take me hunting, willing to, do some of that dad stuff that I didn't have around. So I think I just kind of fell in it, to be honest. I always had interest. It's an art. Mm-hmm. I've always been artsy in some way.
It's an art to some.
Yeah.
To some it's a garage sale.
It is. Yeah, it is. I mean, that's one thing we consider ourselves. We don't really consider ourselves taxidermists here. We consider ourselves artists. We just do taxidermy. So I've always liked that end of it, and that's why I've always competed and always tried to get. When I compete, I go after the artistic awards.
Yeah,
because to me, it is nature's art. These animals are nature's art, and you want to bring that back to them. I think it's the ultimate respect of any animal that's taken.
Your wife is in business with you.
Mm-hmm. And partner.
Yeah. And did she always follow in your footsteps, or she had an interest in this, or?
In the art part of it, yeah. Taxidermy, I mean, is definitely not her thing. It's not her, but
she hunts.
No, she does hunt. And she does not, I mean, neither of us, quote unquote, trophy hunt, it's always been a meat aspect of it for us for the most part. And, but once I had enough work she was fortunate enough to be able to leave the state too, because I needed help. She wanted out of working for the state. So it worked out well. But it all came off a foundation that I've laid over 25 years too.
Yeah, it didn't happen
So
overnight.
no, absolutely not.
So as a taxidermist, and in the similarities of your life and my life, in the sense to where I grew up in a taxidermy shop in Colorado Springs, and started working there when I was 12, and then the owner passed away when I was 20, and it was the Hunter's Moon Taxidermy at the time. Al Vallejo was part of that. And
excuse me.
That whole group of guys.
Yep.
But looking at it from now until back then, in the mid 70s to the 80s, completely different set of circumstances. I mean, it was not so much production at the time, but there was very little artistic components to it. Right. It was somebody harvest something, they got mounted, and they hung it on a wall. Sure. And it was straight run-of-the-mill type taxidermy work.
Yeah, very, very cookie cutters, what we call it.
Yeah.
Using the same form.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I remember looking at the old magazines, the breakthrough magazines, and the animal artistry mentality type of things. When did stuff really start taking hold, in your perspective, before you got involved, or since you got involved, to where it became more artistic oriented?
I think it was right around the time I did get in it. Because anytime I've ever gotten into something, I've always like jumped in it, trying to learn as much as I can, try to be the best at it I can possibly be. And that to me, so like you said, breakthrough magazines, the back cover, the SCI.
Yep.
And it was always Mike Boyce.
Yep.
With Animal Artistry. And he at the time was the only one I knew of that was doing that artistic type stuff.
He took it to another level.
And a whole nother level. And he was basically making everything in his shop too. He had a guy there named Cliff Hales that was doing his sculpting on his forms. He had Phil Soucy working there, who was specializing in cats. He had Dwayne Dewey there that was doing his bears and his sheep and stuff like that. And I heard a quote one time that they said back in the day, animal artistry doesn't, it was a quote, I'm sure I'm butchering this, but animal artistry doesn't do taxidermy, they make taxidermists. Because they've had some of the most incredible taxidermists come out of their shop.
Right.
Which now I think they were artistic to begin with, but I think Mike Boyce was the type of guy, because he was an artist, he was a sculptor, and all that. And I think he just kind of helped those guys flourish. And then eventually every taxidermist goes out on his own. Yeah. He can always make more money. Yeah. They seem to be reverting back now. Like once they've kind of all the way through there, like some friends of mine in the state, they've been in taxidermy 25, 30 years. They're tired of dealing with customers, and they're doing wholesale work for a bigger shop.
Yeah, they just want to mount stuff.
They just want to do their stuff, and they're tired of the phone calls. They're tired of this. They're tired of that. Which trust me,
and we'll get into a bunch of that.
We get into all that too, but
back in the day, like in Colorado, anybody that's familiar with the taxidermy industry, Jonas Brothers was a big, huge giant name.
Huge name.
And we dealt with them regularly for a variety of different things. And I remember in the day that they had wholesalers on their own, that they were actually doing custom work. At the time, it was custom for fish and for birds, and then they were farming that out because so many people didn't do fish and birds at the time. Yeah. And then there was guys that were subject to maybe not wanting the customer base, so they were wholesaling. But all they did was fish. And another guy, all he did was birds.
Yeah, and it actually plays into, it actually works out really well for some people, because some of these, I don't want to say they're on the spectrum or anything, but some people that are so talented in one area are very not good in another area. And a lot of the times that's social interaction. Yeah. So it benefits everybody then. If I'm taking in a bird and I can distribute out to that guy that's not comfortable around being around people, then we've benefited everybody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's a great way to go about it.
Because there's some and I won't say awful stuff, but there's some stuff that in its time was really good, but in comparison to modern day taxidermy, it almost looks awful, like it was some of that bad taxidermy you see online.
Yeah.
But it was top of the line at the time.
Yeah, and that comes down to what was available at the time. You know, a lot of these forms used to be made out of paper.
Yep, paper mache.
Paper mache and like you have no room for error. Once that's on there, you're done.
Yeah.
You know, there's no sculpting it. There's no nothing. Now with things made out of foam, it's very workable. It's very strong still, but at least it's workable.
And the eyes, I remember the eyes used to be something that looked like a teddy bear eyes.
Yeah, yeah, like a googly eye, or a lot of times it was just a black sphere in the head, you know, and that's not how they are.
Yeah.
You know, so, and it's just availability of pieces.
Do you think that that stuff became more needed, or the market created the need for it?
I think the market created it. I think the artists that came around and really cared about making things look good kind of pushed for that, because I don't think you had a whole lot until all of a sudden Tohican Glass Eyes was making stuff. And, you know, they got to a point where I had done a road-killed mountain lion kitten. Well, there's nothing available for them, so I got a hold of Tohican, and they painted me a blue eye, because you know cougar kittens have blue eyes.
Yeah.
So they got on, made me 4 pairs of custom eyes, and it was all good to go. Came out beautiful.
And I've got a pair of those in a mount that I've got.
Yeah.
And you know, it's interesting too, because the interest in quality taxidermy has created a void that you've got regular taxidermy guys. You got the guy that's working out of his garage doing, which is no knock toward any of them. It's just that there's a level of expertise, and there's a level of an eye for the artistic side of it. The guy that was mounting a lot of my stuff out of Fredericktown, Missouri, I actually met him at a trappers convention, and he was doing taxidermy work at the convention, and I just walked up to him. I watched it. I was looking at him I'm like, you're really, really good at these fur bearers. And he goes, well, when you trap and you get the chance to turn around and interact, and you watch and you harvest and you see all of it, it makes you pretty proficient in what you do. Now, it just turns out that Devin has, and he'll listen to this probably and say thanks, but I don't want any more business.
Yeah.
But he's really good at a lot of different things because he has that artistic capability. But what he's done over the course of the last 10 or 15 or 20 years is elevated the type of work that they kick out, and then the taxidermists that have worked under him have now gone on their own, and they're getting first place awards, and they're competing on this different level. Competition wasn't a big part of this whole thing up until about 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah, it's definitely exploded on the competition, and even this year, most of the Western states taxidermy shows, their attendance is up.
Really?
Our competition just this last weekend in Gunnison, we were up almost double from last year
in attendance.
Yeah,
and in
well,
entries?
in pieces, in
entries?
entered pieces. We went from, I believe, and I know I'm not exact, but we were in the high 90s, 96, 97 pieces last year. We were in the 160s this year.
Really?
Yeah. So, and part of that is because a few of us were going for a new award that you had to score a certain amount of points on 4 mounts. So there was a bunch of us got into that. So, but still, even our banquet ticket, we had over 100 banquet tickets sold.
Really?
Yeah, when usually we're in the 50 to 60s. So it's good to see.
And that's for the person that doesn't know, that's different classifications. So you'll have birds, and you'll have fish, and you'll have small mammals.
Tons of divisions.
It's just different divisions.
Yeah, I mean, you have everything. I mean, you have your majors, you have your mammal divisions, but then they break that down into life size or game head. You have bird divisions, which that breaks down to usually like upland birds, waterfowl, turkeys. And then you have fish divisions, which come from skin mount to reproduction, warm water, salt water. I mean, it just depends where you're competing at.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of divisions.
And what's the most common that people are doing to try to get into the competition?
Mammals.
Is it?
Yeah, it's almost always mammals. It's usually deer.
Yeah.
Usually the most is the deer. But honestly, just Western game. They and I think that's where we're fortunate, where you say that guy's good at so many different species and that. I think that's, well, like the fur bearers and that, they have a lot of things to work with there.
Right.
You know, where the most mounted animal in the world is a white-tailed deer.
Yeah, exactly.
So most shops do white-tailed deer. Sometimes they only do white-tailed deer.
Turkeys.
And turkeys,
And
yeah.
you don't realize
A lot of turkeys.
a lot of
Yeah.
turkeys. I've been in the shops in the eastern part of the country. You walk in there, and it is, he's got 150 deer heads and 150 turkey mounts.
Yeah, no,
and I'm like, he's like, well, that's all we have here. What else are we gonna mount?
Well, and that's it, right? You know, where you come out west, what we have the 10 big game species here. You know, so, and a lot of us, once you get known on Western game, you start pulling game from Alaska, Northern Canada, all that stuff.
And then everybody expects you to do all the Mongolian stuff,
Yeah.
and all the Russian stuff, and all the African stuff.
Yeah, it's a vicious circle when it comes to that stuff, you know. And people are just, and I understand, because there's so much time, passion, money, effort that goes into these. They want someone to do their work that knows what they're doing. You know, and it's not so much that I can tell you what a grizzly bear looks like exactly. What a good taxidermist knows to do is check reference, mount it to that reference. That's what you want, is someone who's never stops learning, I guess, is the main thing. They're always trying to improve. That's what you want. You don't want...
It's like an artistic science.
It is. It is, absolutely. I mean, and I'm not trying to knock anybody else. Like, there's some guys that just want to put out a lot of work. That's their thing, is numbers. I'm never going to knock them. Those guys are needed. There are people,
because there's a price difference too.
There's a huge price.
There's a level of expectance.
There's a huge price difference, and some guys, it just depends what they're looking at. If it's their deer with their horns on the wall, they're not looking at the rest of it. It's just a mount with their horns on it. There's other guys that want that thing to look as close to a deer or an elk or whatever that it possibly can. So budget's always a thing. Me, for certain things, like, I can see if you're shooting deer every year or elk every year or whatever, but when you come down to an animal like a bighorn sheep that you're going to shoot one time in your life if you're lucky. Some guys get a little luckier, but you know, to me,
some get luckier.
To me,
everybody,
I would not be shopping around for price on that.
Yeah,
I'm going to go to who knows them
the
best, or who at least who you're comfortable with.
Right.
You know, because boy, I've seen some bad stuff, and it honestly, it's heartbreaking to see some of it.
Some of the old stuff. And I've dealt in taxidermy, buying and selling and trading taxidermy, as you well know, for the better part of 40 years in some capacity. But some of the old stuff that was done by really good taxidermists that weren't really artistic, they were just really good taxidermists, actually looks better than what I've seen 40 years later of some stuff that people are kicking out because they don't have an artistic bone in their body. That's not knocking the guys. It's just stating the fact that this looks like a reproduction of what the animal was. This looks like some sort of facsimile of what you think it should.
No, you're absolutely right. And where you can see that was, if you look back 20, 25 years ago to what Mike Boyce was doing out at Animal Artistry, those mounts stand true today.
Yes.
You know, and then I can show you a mount that was done a year and a half ago, and they don't even really belong in the same room. So
Jonas ran into that problem.
Yes.
Jonas used to be really, really top end. And I harvested a coyote one time, and I wanted a coyote because I knew and I got it back, and I got rid of that coyote that summer because it's not what I wanted to look at.
It happens, and there's, I don't want to say, like, I hate to say like a fall from grace, but there's things that happen in the industry. Like, you get a name like Jonas, you get a name like Animal Artistry. I don't want to say unfortunately like me, but you get where there's too much work.
Yes.
And then you have to hire help that's not necessarily qualified, you know, and because it's just about, it gets to be about numbers at some point. And that's what I'm really trying to avoid here, is to not let my quality slip because I have too much.
Well, and I've been in business for the better part of my adult life. I mean, going on 40 years at a variety of different things. You get too busy, you raise the price. You raise the price. And if they still want to keep coming, maybe you're still cheap enough.
Yeah, well, trust me, every time I raise my price, I end up with more work.
Yeah.
So, and it's not even exaggerating. Every time we've raised it, we've gotten more. And I'm blessed in a way in that, you know, when I was younger, I guided for other people. I guided for Gary. I guided for all these people. And those people are still my friends. Well, they're still outfitters.
Yeah.
They're still, you know, harvesting these animals. They're still bringing them to me, you know, so I'm never going to cut off certain people. I'm fortunate that I'm at a place in my business where I'm comfortable enough that if you're not a good client, you're not sticking around
Right.
here, which is a nice place to
Right.
be. But at the same time, when I know that there's not a massive amount of quality work outside of my shop, I feel bad not taking something from somebody because I do want it to look the best it can look.
Yeah.
So there's always that, right?
But you're a 2-person operation with a sister-in-law that helps occasionally on some different levels.
Yeah.
You can only do so much.
Yeah.
And I think we talked a little bit earlier about your backlog, but I mean, people have to realize that just like game wardens they got into it for a lot of the reasons that you and I do.
Yeah.
Taxidermists didn't get into it just because they wanted a job. They got into it for the livelihood and the belief of what they were trying to produce was a final product for a 3-dimensional remembrance on the wall.
Well, and it's also just being around these animals more. You know, it's not, I've always been attached to nature pretty hard ever since I was a little kid. You know, you just want to stay close to it. And to me, doing taxidermy is the ultimate respect to that animal. You know, and that's just the way I look at it. I don't like anything. I mean, trust me, they don't all come out 100% great all the time. They're scarred up. They do different things. There's reasons they don't come out as good, but they're gonna leave here the best I can make them leave, is the way I feel. And to me, after what we've done all of our lives, whether we're shooting predators under management reasons, whether we're just hunting for meat or whatever, you know, they're all important. And it doesn't matter how big or how small they are, they always mean something to somebody. You know, I don't care what it is. I think it's great if a 12, 14, 15-year-old kid comes in here with a little 2-point buck that he wants because it's his first one. Great job. I'm going to make it look the best I can make it look. I don't care how big it is.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You know, it's
to him,
respect.
And we get criticized, and we'll get into this, but we get criticized. To him, that is no different than a trophy of what we have sitting behind us.
No,
and so from what you've seen that we have to deal with to continually try to preserve the ability to hunt and manage wildlife and hopefully harvest mature animals.
Right.
You just looking at that from behind the scenes, when people call us, they're bastardizing trophy hunting. What does that do to you from somebody that deals with the spectrum of small, medium, and large, and a different variety of individuals that are harvesting things for different reasons? Somebody says, "Oh, you're just a freaking trophy hunter."
Well, in my younger days, there probably would have been fist throwing stuff, you know, ridiculous things. You're stupid. I try to see things through other people's eyes a little bit and understand why they're thinking the way they're thinking. And honestly, the harder I think about it, it just comes down to ignorance. They just don't know what we do and what we go through.
Yeah.
And, you know, like a handful of years ago, I don't even remember when it was, 4 or 5 years ago now, we're just hunting deer. My wife's tag. We're just looking we try not to shoot too small because we're not the greatest on deer around here right now with that lion study going on.
You're trying to do some mature harvest.
Yeah, we're trying to let a few breeder bucks live and try not to shoot anything too small. Because if it's too small, there's not that much meat on it anyway, right? So we found the smallest piece of BLM that I think exists in Colorado, and here's this. I don't want to call him a giant, but he's a big buck, you know, and she steps out, one shot, boom, you know, we're all good. Well, she will kindly remind everybody, but that's the biggest buck in the family, right? By no intention, you know, but it's a great buck. It's a bragging thing for her because she has a bigger deer than I have. So he's in the house, you know, mounted beautifully. I actually won quite a few awards with him and stuff too, you know, and but doesn't matter. I mean, I have 3 deer smaller than that, or, you know, around the same size or whatever. And it just doesn't matter because we lucked into that one, right? But if it's a 2-point and you, whatever size, and you're, okay, I'm going to hunt that deer. You do everything that it takes and you get that deer, that's a big deal. You set out and accomplished what you went out to accomplish. Doesn't matter how big he is. I'd probably put him on the wall too. You know, I mean, it's all about, and we all know this too, which they don't know. It's not about, to me, the size of the horns as it is the age of the deer. I'm going for mature because, for one, he's got less seasons left. He's already had all that out here. Some of the oldest bucks I've had in this shop have had nothing for horns.
Really?
You know, just, you know, they regress. They regress, and they start on that, or they have one really weird side, or whatever happens to.
Well, look at that stuff that my son brings in here.
Yeah.
The morphodite looking stuff.
I love everything he brings in here.
I mean, they're not even breeder bucks. They can't breed.
No, and honestly, my wife shot a buck like that a few years ago too. And we're just hanging out looking, and I said, "Oh, baby, that one's still in velvet. I want him," because we knew he's never gonna
breed.
He's not gonna have that gamey, ruddy stuff going on and all that stuff. And we set out, and she got it, and he's mounted it.
Ethan's got a whole collection of those things. I mean,
I don't know where he finds them. He just finds them hit by cars.
I know. I mean, if there's a 35-inch buck standing on the side of the hill, and there's some morphodite looking velvet,
nope, give me that one.
Yeah, I want that one. Yeah.
You know, but in all honesty, why not? Let that big buck breed. That's the one we want doing the breeding.
Yeah.
And people don't understand this too. The year my wife shot the big buck, I had a tag too. And we hunted for 2 more days, and it was horrible. We were seeing little bucks with all the does, and this was late 3rd season. Should have been big bucks moving in. I pitched my tag.
Really?
I didn't even finish hunting. You know, and I literally would have felt bad shooting them. Well, that's the kind of
and that goes into the argument that we end up doing when we're trying to do public testimony, or we're trying to rationalize with people that don't necessarily see from our side of the fence. And when you look at a success rate of roughly 20% on deer, or 11% on elk, or 19% on mountain lions, there's a hell of a lot of unused tags that are going out there to make sure that we have a sustainable population that we have the opportunity to pick and choose from. And most people that they want to give the impression, and even the uneducated non-hunter is under the impression that you got a license. If they thought that you got a license, you got a license, you went out and you killed your animal.
Oh yeah, there's a dead one. Just because there's a tag, it's a dead
exactly.
one.
And nothing could be further from the truth.
No, it's not even close. Like, not even. I mean, I've ate tags how many times, and it wasn't for lack of trying. It wasn't for passing stuff up. And sometimes it's just hard.
It's just hard. And you know, the stars need to align for a variety of different reasons. And whether a guy wants to harvest a mountain lion or a big buck, or a bighorn sheep, or a mountain goat, or a trophy elk, you know, the giant elk, if they want to do that, the likelihood of doing that is even less likely than what is considered in the percentage, the harvest percentage, the success percentage.
If you're really trying for that, it goes way down. Significantly down, because you can see, I mean, for one, there's always way more small ones than there are big ones. You know, so it can be hard just to find an elk, much less a big one. You know,
or one.
Same with the lion. Same with the lions. You know, I mean, I think this goes back to one of the things you said about your trapper friend that was a taxidermist, and why he's, you know, as good at what he does, because he gets that interaction. Well, when I was guiding for Gary, and then on my own afterwards, we treat and harvested over 400 lions. I've seen a few. I kind of know what they look like, you know, but at the same time, I know how hard those 400 were to kill. My God.
But that's over a period of time.
Oh, it's over 25 years.
Yeah,
You
for hundreds of people,
know.
dozens of outfitters,
Yep.
different situations,
Oh, yeah.
and to do that and still be literally 19% of the total
Oh,
harvest.
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what that is. Last year, and when we were fighting the campaign on 127, there was 2,500 licenses sold in the state of Colorado with a 19% success, a little over 500 cats and 502 cats. There wasn't 2,500.
No.
And until we got to a level of management capabilities, there was years that there was harvest of 150 and then 200 and then 250 and 300 because as the population increased so substantially, then the harvest could actually go up.
Right.
Non-hunters or anti-hunters don't understand the complexities of wildlife management. And if they were to come in a place like this and see what you have, they don't understand how many people that didn't harvest something for the amount of stuff that you have times 100 taxidermists in the state of Colorado.
Yeah, I wish I knew. I wish I knew the numbers of, harvest, like who harvested a buck, and how many of those actually went to a taxidermist. Because then you're cutting that percentage even farther down.
Exactly.
But we are a good barometer of what is going on locally, or in the areas our outfitters are in, or whatever. Like you look at where. I think we're at the tail end of that study now, right?
Yeah.
So
for the mountain lion study.
So the south side of the river, when I was running, was 36 cats we could kill off the south. The north was 42. And we used to fill them almost every year. Or not fill them, but on the verge of filling them, 2-3 cats left. So think about that now. They finally opened up the other side, but they were killing 11 on one side and 12 on the other. Think of how many lions there are in there now.
Oh, yeah.
And how many deer there aren't. Because you used to be able to drive North Cotopaxi, say you're going up to...
Where we're going to...
Yeah, up to where you're going to Rusty's later. Driving from the store to Rusty's, any time of the day, it doesn't even have to be early morning, late at night, you would see 100 deer, 60 to 100 deer. I bet you don't see 6 when you go up there.
I doubt that we will.
If you even see any.
Yeah.
It's that bad,
And we'll get that off for Rusty when we turn around and talk to him as well.
Oh, Rusty's a whole nother story.
Sean's looking forward to that.
You guys are going to learn what that's like. But yeah, and he's lived up there his entire life. He'll be the one that'll tell you how bad it really is. Running the boys' ranch and all that stuff through there, where we used to be able to take a lot of cats out of there, and everything's hurt from it. Even the sheep up there.
Everything's got to eat, and it has to eat, and it has to eat, and it has to eat.
Yep.
And when you don't manage one for another, then something is going to suffer in the meantime.
Yep.
Speaking of which, I mean, have you seen cycles from a taxidermy harvest standpoint to where the quality of animals has peaked and valleyed over time for a variety of different reasons? Maybe it's success rate just because of somebody's luck, but some of it's climate, some of it's predation, some of whatever it might be.
Yeah, the biggest I ever saw, I believe, was 2008 when they had the big die-off in Gunnison. I remember, I can't remember the kid's name now though, but they walked that one, there was one drainage in that Gunnison Basin where one guy picked up 124 deadheads.
Of stuff that died during the winter.
All deer, all bucks. And that was all, I think that was total, but...
That was the winter of 2007, 2008.
Something like that. I don't remember the days exactly, but Gunnison's never been the same.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely come back, but I hunted it for deer last year and it didn't look good.
No.
It did not look
No, we've hunted typically area 55 and 551.
Yeah. I was 551.
Yeah, and the deer is not what it used to be.
I saw one group, and I think it was the guy, the one outfitter from over there. They shot a hell of a buck up high. And And of course, there wasn't much snow yet or anything either. So I know some of those bigger bucks were moving down, but no, that was second season. So it was a little bit early still, but I wasn't even seeing does. You used to drive through Wood Gulch over there.
Yep.
And you couldn't not run into a deer. And it snowed the night before season. And I had kind of followed the circus of elk hunters that drive up through there. And I drove, I don't know, 100 miles between Wood Gulch, other side of the road. I never crossed a deer track in the road.
In the snow?
In the snow. Until I got back down to like Parlin there, and there was a herd that was coming out of the willows and crossed through some private. Other than that, I never saw a deer or a deer track.
Have you seen that sort of a catastrophic event this side of the Continental Divide ever? You're
Not that I recall. I know, talking with the guys, I know that the Hill Ranch has had some fluctuations, but I think part of that's going in and out of the state to Vermejo Park. I know some of that stuff moves around through there. And that was one thing. They are having, I think they're having a little bit less deer, but Vermejo Park stopped shooting lions. And it's hurt everybody down there. So
they've got bears out the wazoo.
Oh my God, I've never seen the amount of bears that they have down there. That is unreal.
And they're suffering on the calf and
yeah, especially on the dry years.
Yeah.
They said, I think it was Bob Holder was telling us when we were down there the one time. We had that dry year 3-4 years ago, and Bob said their calf recruitment was usually around 25% or 30%, and it was down below 15% because there was no grass for the calves to be born in, and the bears were just hammering them.
Just picking them up.
Yeah, and you can never... Country like that, you're never going to kill enough bears.
But for somebody that doesn't know, or somebody's watching or listening to this, the fluctuation in the quality of horns, the maturity, goes a lot on weather conditions. It also goes a lot on the health of the animal itself.
Yeah.
But explain what I'm trying to get at when you start talking about elk and deer and bighorn sheep and how they rely on the habitat to be able to produce a better lifestyle for them.
Yeah, well, I think it's the struggle, right? Anytime you're short on water, or got to go farther for grass, whatever you have to do, I think it's the added stress more than it's anything else, because there is usually grass somewhere, but how far is said grass between the water? Then you start pushing towards the rut. Say for elk, you take into consideration, then they want to take their herds in different directions. And I think just that stress gets that much more. My best gauge on that is because I've been working with the Hill Ranch for so many years. I can tell the drought years. And it's kind of odd how it works. One year you might have a perfect set of horns, but they're all busted to pieces because they have no density.
Oh.
And I don't know if that's nutrition, lack of water, what it is. And then the next year, you'll have the same size elk and just this massive set of horns, Or you'll have where grass is great in the spring, like now, rain and all good, but then it drops off June, July, and the horn growth on the back end just drops off to nothing.
You could watch it.
You can watch it happen.
Yeah.
They'll be all fronts, and then the drops and the backs are just gone.
Okay.
You'll have where you should have a 10-inch fifth point coming off, you have a 2-inch fifth point. And you can tell that from year to year.
And some of that's genetics, but a lot of it is
I think it's more nutrition
Is it?
and more habitat than it is anything else. And I think a good acorn crop is important. Because elk are in the acorns all the time, and they eat them just as much as anybody else does. So, and then if you don't have an acorn crop, only are they not there for the elk to eat, but they're also where the problem is where they're not there for the bears to eat. Then you become a problem, because then bears I think at a point are going to start looking for something to kill. And then there go your calves again, the ones that did make it through the spring calving. I think that's where they're going to run into problems too.
Do you see that's the same variations on sheep? Because you got the rings on the sheep horns.
Oh yeah, sheep for sure. You can tell a good year from a bad year on sheep growth.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll see now whether that's nutrition or not, I think is a hard thing to tell. Some of it could be an injury. can make them have a light year too. But I think nutrition does play a big part in that.
And that's just like growth rings on a tree.
They work the same way. It's still an annuli.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to set that ring every winter. And then you'll notice a lot of times, I don't know that I have one in here to see, because generally, you know, they start just like anything, their main growth comes in their early years and then they kind of drop off. But I've seen several you get between, you know, 5 or 6 years old, whatever the time is, and you'll have a 1-inch growth for the year. And then next year they're great again. So something happened in that year. Whether you can tell it's nutrition in the river canyon, I think that could be a major player, because that, you know how that river canyon grows. I mean,
there's water down there, but it might not be anything.
Well, and that, and then are they eating cactus that year, or are they eating grass? You know, I've seen sheep with cactus stuck to the side of their face. I don't know how they chew on it, but they do.
Really?
You know? Oh yeah, I've seen them. I mean, flat just grab a hold of it and start eating it. I don't know how they do it, but I've seen it happen. You know.
What's your favorite animal to provide your artistic influence to?
Sheep and mountain lions.
Yeah.
Are my main ones. Yeah, but I think that's just, I hunted lions for so long, and they're just such a beautiful animal. And when you look at taxidermy, the worst ones you'll see are the cats, the bobcats, the lions, and I think it's a travesty when they're not nice. So I try my best to bring them back the most I can. And then sheep, I don't know, I guess I got sheep fever like everybody else, but there's a beautiful animal. To me, when you talk about a majestic animal, a sheep is a majestic animal.
Yeah.
You know, and so is an elk. I'm not trying to take them away from anything, but I guess maybe the rarity of them a little. There's only so many out there, you know, compared to deer. What, we got 300,000 elk or whatever. We have
7,000 sheep.
7,000 sheep.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's kind of that thing too.
Do you think, from your experience, and you talk to hunters, a lot of hunters, but you also talk to game wardens, and you talk to
a lot.
biologists.
I work close with them.
Yeah.
They're great.
Do you think that the mountain lion population has gone down?
No, it's exploded in my eyes.
Do you think the bear population has gone down?
No. No, the bears is probably the worst thing we've ever had happen to our state. Losing I know they did the whole jelly donut thing and all this stuff, but not being able to bait bears, and especially not be able to run them with dogs, has been horrible for our state. Because a bear's not afraid of a dog anymore.
Yeah.
So therefore they're in town all the time. You know, they say, oh, you know, you're moving into their country, and we are. Don't get me wrong. They're building in their country. Oh, they have to come because there's no food because of this. No, they come because it's easy.
Well,
and they're not afraid of it.
Look at Aurora last week. I mean, there was bears in Aurora for crying out loud.
Yeah,
they didn't build into bear territory.
No,
the bears came into the Aurora territory.
And that's exactly it. And it's because it's easy. You know, they say don't feed the bears. Why? Because it makes it easy for them.
Yeah, and they're going to continue to be a problem.
So, exactly, because they have no fear. We had fear instilled in those bears to not be around people. That's not a bad thing, because it's just
actually helpful.
It's extremely helpful. You know, and it's funny because when you do have a problem bear that they need to take care of, they can't trap them. What do? They look for a guy that has bear dogs, and they run, and that's how you handle it. But they've taken that. The worst part about it is they've taken every control option out of the hands of the Division of Wildlife, or Parks and Wildlife, whatever you want to call them. That's the problem. They're the ones that need every tool in their toolbox to fix a problem. When you take that away from them, you don't let them do their job.
Well, be like an example. Allowing you to do what you do, but taking specific tools away from you to do the artistic.
Doesn't work.
No, it ain't going to work.
Doesn't work.
You're going to get something out of it, but it's not going to be the right thing.
Right. Well, and it goes back to that, because that year, 2007, 2008, not only did we have that nasty winter over there, but we also had a drought the next year. And I remember our game wardens up there spent 5 to 6 months of the year just chasing bears. There was somebody, I think it was a news article, but they were talking about how before the bear ban or whatever, you know, they took all that away from us. They had 2 bear calls to the sheriff's office come through the switchboard. The year they wrote that, we had 500
That's not
problem bear
yeah.
calls come through
that
the
was just
sheriff's
in that
office.
particular geographical.
And that was just Salida.
Yeah, that's not around the state.
No, absolutely not. That was just through the Salida switchboard. So think about that. The most you ever had until then was 2, and now you have 500. How much time does that take your divisional area, your wildlife manager, out of his normal job to go bait them with jelly donuts and whatever you're against, so they can move him one time and then the next time he gets killed anyway?
Yeah.
Where you can have people buying a hunting license, especially a non-resident, which is $300 or whatever, harvesting that bear before he's a problem. Most of them are going to be towards town anyway. People don't want to go that far if they don't have to. So they're going to be the closer ones to town anyway. You can do something useful with the hide and you can still eat the meat. Why does it make sense to let the Division of Wildlife kill that same bear, which costs taxpayers money? It just doesn't make sense.
Well,
it's all emotions.
And I think a lot of that goes into misinterpretation for what the ultimate outcome is. And when individuals are trying to do things for a renewable resource, for a resource that can be utilized over and over and over, as opposed to just take it off the plate and there's no capabilities to be able to utilize it whatsoever.
Well, and
they do nothing.
They've proven time and time again that hunted populations are healthier. Period. You know, so I don't know. I mean, it's all emotion driven stuff, which is unfortunate.
So you brought up the healthy populations. Do you see cycles on the taxidermy side? Because you see the final product. You see something when somebody brings it in pretty close to harvest. Do you see diseased animals? Do you see animals that come in that you go, well, that's not healthy, or these things are not in good shape?
No, I don't think in like healthy wise, no. I notice year to year more lions. You can tell they're fighting more. A lot of scarred up animals, fresh ones.
So you have more in the.
I think you have too many. I think right now our problem is locally you have too many cats in an area, way too many. And I mean, when I talk about those quotas back there, we used to fill them. I mean, we're definitely killing 2 to 3. We're killing 2 to 3 more times more than we are now. And we still had plenty of lions, you know, but what we did have back then and we don't have now are healthy populations of hunting animals, meat animals. There's so many less deer, I can't even explain it.
That's something to where somebody in town or lives in close proximity to an urban setting, they see deer all over the place. It's in the open spaces.
That's where they are, though.
Yeah. And so you and I realize, and people that have been in the field over time realize, I mean, if somebody doesn't like what I do or what you do or appreciates what Colorado Parks and Wildlife does, they see deer on the way to Black Hawk when they're going to the casino or whatever.
So there's deer everywhere.
So there's, or they go to Rocky Mountain National Park, or they go to somewhere where, you know, at Evergreen where they're running around in the subdivisions. But that's not, that's the domesticated, urbanized.
Right. Well, and that's the talk we always have. There's no more deer in the mountains. They're all in town. There's no more mountain deer. All that stuff. I remember when you used to hit above timberline and there was no buckbrush because the deer had eaten it all. Now there's buckbrush everywhere, and not a one's been chewed on.
No, and we hunted sheep in the Sangre de Cristos for that tag I had in 2022, and I guided in there in my younger days, and it was not uncommon to turn around and see 15 or 20 or 30 good-sized bucks during a sheep hunt.
Yeah.
We didn't see any. Not any.
That's a good story, because when I hunted the Sangre de Cristos for sheep, I can't remember the year right now, maybe 09, I was up in Macy Lakes. And if you're familiar with that, there's 3 high lakes up there. And I was up above the lowest lake, clear above timberline, so that's where the sheep are in that unit. From where I sat, I could see 64 bucks above timberline. And that's the 4 points or better.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't tell you if it was a fork, you probably just look like a doe, because I'm looking through my binoculars, but there was 64 bucks in that unit. I had some guys a couple years ago that drew that high country tag, the high country rifle tag. they could not find a deer.
Mm-hmm.
And they hunted that range from West Cliff north, and they could not find a deer in that legal above 11,000 foot. Everything's down in town,
Yeah.
or down on the hay.
And some of that's predation. Some of that has got to do with the resiliency of the particular species.
Mhm.
But look, I've been around the predator side of things for the better part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And predators are going to eat every single day.
Sure.
I'm not holding that against them. But I'm part of the predator deal too.
Sure.
And a lot of people don't want you and I to be part of that.
Yeah, I never understood that.
No, and to them, they want to talk about deer and elk, but you look at it from a memory standpoint or a three-dimensional piece of art. If you got rid of your bears and your mountain lions,
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have less deer and elk.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, right? Because that's my whole problem with the wolves. Because to me, wolves being in our state means less elk, which means less tags, and you can put your tinfoil hat on if you want to. But to me, that's their ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm.
Is just
They
want to control our food source.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to provide for myself. Think if it all goes south and those animals aren't there, we're all done. So we want it to be managed for good numbers. We want to be able to have an opportunity at meat every year.
Yeah.
And that with wolves, that goes away. With more lions, that goes away. With more bears, that goes away. I want that resource to always be there and be there in good numbers.
For
And
all of
any predator. Why do you not see them trying to say, oh, you shouldn't be shooting antelope? It's always the predator that they're protecting because that is their way in of getting rid of all of it. Because we've always gone at hunting as a conservation type thing. Oh, we need hunters, keep numbers down. It's not about that. It's about a food source. It's about a resource that we all deserve to have. Now, obviously, we can't all hunt. There's not enough animals for that.
But we're not all successful anyway.
Well, we're not all successful anyway. So that's why you have your other forms of agriculture. But to me, you should be able to feed yourself. We eat at least an elk every year. You know what I mean? So,
but do you think the byproduct, the leftover byproduct, if whether it's a set of deer antlers or maybe an elk head or maybe a sheep mount, do you think the byproduct itself is the talking point or the armament for the enemy to be able to turn around and say, you shouldn't be able to do this and this and this? I don't have a problem with you eating stuff, but you shouldn't be able to do the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of went at that with the cats, right? Yeah. Cats are not trophies kind of thing. And I mean, I guess I see where they're coming from, but it falls back into that ignorance again. We do eat the cats. Mm-hmm. We do. They're good. I've ate so many of them over the years, I can't even count them. So I think it just goes right back to your ignorance again. But I mean, yes, a lion hunt. Yeah, I get what you're doing. You could they look at that the wrong way, as they look at that as the individual part of it. Like, okay, this guy flew in just to go on a lion hunt, blah, blah, blah. It's more than that though. It's management. That lion, now take away, just say it's a male, that lion's killing 50 deer minimum every year. And it's probably more than that because they either lose it because it freezes, they lose it to coyotes, whatever the case is. Very rarely.
They'll lose it to wolves.
They're going to lose a bunch of them to the wolves. I mean, Idaho and Montana have proven that. The lions do most of the killing up there. But they get to eat it a day and then the wolves find it because there's so many.
So the lion's got to go kill something else.
The lion's got to go kill another one. And I think you have, as much as you may not like that individual guy going and shooting that lion, taking his hide, going back east, having it mounted, whatever the case is, you're still taking a tool out of the hands of the Division of Wildlife. They need that tool, And so, because I mean, you think about it from our way, you killed 500 deer, right? What's 500 times 50? That's how many deer you just lost, too, that are not available to a person that may need to eat. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of,
And if they decide to turn around and make knife handles out of the antlers, or to turn around and mount that thing, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. It's got nothing to do with that. It's more the ultimate respect to that animal. And it's also an accomplishment of something that you went and accomplished. You've been wanting to do it. Whether you worked hard and made all that money that paid for that hunt, maybe that's the accomplishment, that you can afford to do that. Who cares what it is? Doesn't matter. Either way, you taking that lion is helping in another way. Whatever your individual motive is, doesn't matter. It's another management tool that CPW needs.
From your observations, has the clientele changed over the last 20
Oh
years?
yeah, for sure.
For the better or the worse?
I think for the better,
Yeah.
for the most part. A lot of times it just seemed to be the super rich guys, that were on a quest, or they could afford it. Things have definitely changed, but I guess more what has changed is the number of people that do mount things, because they just didn't used to before. I remember working for Gary for the first few years. I was worried if I was going to have a job because there wasn't enough work.
Really?
Yeah. Now, that being said, I feel like the number of taxidermists was more.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do believe that there was less things actually being mounted too. Just now I think it's being.
There's more spendable income now.
Yeah,
that sort
for
of
sure.
stuff that's set aside than when I was a kid working at the taxidermy shop, and I remember $135 for an antelope or a deer head.
Don't even get a tan for that.
No, $135. But it was hard for somebody to turn around and come up with $135 in the late 70s.
Yep.
It was a big difference. Sure. And now you turn around and, I mean, what's the cost of a deer head?
Mine are $1,150.
Yeah.
So it's $1,000 more.
Yeah. But you're probably not making any more than what they did then.
It doesn't feel like it.
When the cost of living.
It doesn't feel like it, for sure.
What are some of the biggest challenges from this side of the business that you have to endure, besides your time and the amount of work that you take in? What are some of the biggest challenges?
Definitely people knowing what they're doing in the field.
That they don't know.
That they don't know. Yeah. What they're doing, I guess, or not doing. Is what it is. I think I get a little bit frustrated because I'll get a phone call, right? And he says, "Hey, I shot a mountain lion this morning. I just want it tanned, whatever." It doesn't matter what they're doing with it. And I'm like, well, just stick it in your freezer for now until you can get down this way, and I'll be happy. No, I didn't skin it. Well, why not? I don't know how. Why not? Like if you're gonna go on these hunts, do some research ahead of time. There's videos out there on all this. YouTube University, man.
Yeah.
Get on there, because it's on there. It's the same as skinning a bobcat. It's the same as skinning a coyote if you want it to be. It doesn't have to be that species. Just get the hide off of there with not too much fat and not too much meat, and get it in the freezer, and it'll be fine. But, well, I need to get it skinned at 8 o'clock at night. You got an hour drive. I'm not skinning it. Well, I have to work in the morning. I'm sorry.
So do you.
Skin him. That's all I can tell you. I mean, please research.
But somebody that doesn't know how to skin, and there's that situation, do they have a better chance of just butchering it and hacking it up?
They do.
Yeah.
But there again, learn before you go.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff. Division Wildlife does stuff all the time. You have your sheep and goat meetings. You have all kinds of stuff you can do. Telling you, there's nothing you can't learn on the internet, period. Even call me. I'll tell you how to do it when you know you're going.
Yeah.
If you know you're going, I can send you stuff. I have pictures of where to make your cuts. I send that stuff out all the time. But oh yeah, I'm going to go kill a lion. Are you ready? Are you ready that you're going to be able to take care of that? Not lose the meat, because you have to make it.
Right.
It has to be prepared for human consumption. That includes not letting it rot, beforehand. So you need to take care of all of that stuff, because the hide doesn't matter to CPW.
No. It's
the meat's what matters. And everybody needs to know that.
So even somebody that doesn't intend on trying to mount something, but decides maybe, hey, well, okay, we'll get a horn mount, we'll get a skull mount, or we'll turn around and get a hide tanned.
Yep.
The people that have an idea that they want to preserve something, what are a couple pieces of advice you could give as far as a guy drops something, or his daughter kills her first buck and it's bigger than what they anticipated they were going to get, and she's 12 years old and they want to salvage it. What's the first thing that they should do to be able to turn around outside of gutting it? Because let's just say it's a Saturday afternoon, you guys might be open or somebody else. What level of confidence should they turn around and try to get involved to take care of something, and what steps should they do?
Well, if you've never had an intention ever of ever mounting something, right? Like, say you're just a hunter, you're a meat hunter,
you know how to skin it,
and that's fine. You've got all my respect. I completely understand. Most things, if you just get that hide off, I can salvage it if you make as few cuts as possible. Where people go wrong is, they chop up, get up. Don't cut the throat.
Yeah.
Because it's already dead. It's not going to bleed out. That only works if the heart's still beating. So first of all, do that, because that was one thing me and Gary had to teach a lot of people, is just stop cutting that throat, because you're cutting all the hair off, and it's no good to mount anything.
Because their dad did it and their grandpa did it.
Well, and it was
the way
that thing back in the day.
They didn't never mount anything.
Yep, it's like kosher butcher, But it that's the main thing. And then most places just gut it like normal, and you're fine. Get it in your truck. You can drag them. Just get the front shoulders and stuff off the ground when you do that, or get something under it to drag it out to try and preserve the hair, because you will pull every bit of hair off of there. And then just call us, get it to us as fast as you can. If I can't take it in at that time, I'm going to tell you how to do it. So it's really not an issue. But just get on the phone with somebody that knows.
Don't let it sit in the back of a hot pickup.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Don't put it in a truck.
I mean, it's saving the hide is really no different than saving the meat. It's all the same thing. That deer needs to be cooled out as fast as it can. Same with the hide. I mean, I've lots of times skinned stuff that, has been gutted, hung in a cooler for a day or two. It comes off the same for me. Doesn't matter.
Fine.
So just treat it like you treat the meat more than anything else, and try not to just butcher it.
If you want to support a company that supported the efforts to defeat Proposition 127, then you need to support Davis Tent. Davis Tent has provided quality canvas goods for outdoorsmen for the last 50 plus years. For more information, go to davistent.com. If you want to support another business that was instrumental in helping us defeat Proposition 127, check out Salida Gun Shop. Salida Gun Shop in Salida, Colorado provides quality products, expertise, and knowledge from individuals that actually do what they sell. Go to salidagunshop.com. Listen to the advice of Cameron Haynes and support companies that are supporting your cause and your efforts. Minturn Anglers is one of those companies. Minturn Anglers provides product and fishing excursions in Colorado and are second to none. For more information, go to minturnanglers.com. Do you see ignorance or neglect when it comes to the law-abiding side of it, as far as somebody comes in here and it's a carcass tag, for instance.
Yeah.
How many times you got to chew somebody's ass about a carcass tag versus leaving it on the set of horns or whatever it is?
I usually have to correct something. Hey, you need this. This has to stay with your meat. Because most people, the easiest place to put it on is the horn, right? So if it's whole, obviously I'll just cut it off then and hand it to him. Just hold on to that. That needs to go on your meat. Or I'll skin the leg up and I'll zip tie it around the hock or something. That's not too bad. Most guys are actually really good. Hey, you need my license. By law, technically, no, I don't. But I try to write their CID number down or their license number down or whatever, just to prove that they had that tag on that here. I've been fortunate, and it's actually never happened here, knock on wood. But when I worked for Gary, we did have a couple of things that were confiscated, no fault of ours. And actually, the hunter, it wasn't poached. None of it was poached. There was some kind of dispute on what happened. So they by law, they got to bring you a search warrant, seizure warrant, all that stuff. But I mean, honestly, I work hand in hand with our local guys, Bob Carochi, Zach Holder. They're great guys. Easy to work with. If you have an issue, trust me, I've gotten it. I think Bob's written everybody a ticket. And that was my fault. I was late checking in a bobcat. You know, I was within season, so I didn't lose it. It was just a fine. But so they're going to do their job. But it's nothing to be afraid of. If you screwed up, you just need to tell them.
Yeah.
You know, and if I have anything questionable, which I really haven't, I just call them like, hey, I try, because the last thing I need is them having a problem with me.
Have you ever had anybody that's tried to get you to do things that you didn't
Not knowingly?
Yeah.
No, you mean like something poached or something?
Well, or just,
Yeah.
you know, the day before season, day after season, wrong unit.
Oh,
You know,
no, I haven't here.
Yeah.
Not knowingly.
yeah.
But I ask questions. I kind of work like a pawn shop a little bit. In the fact I'm like, all right, awesome. Where'd you get that? You know, and try to get a story. If they're a little shady about it, I'd be like, maybe I don't want to do it, you know, but most guys are so excited and so upfront about everything that you can tell it's a legit
Yeah.
type of thing. You know, nobody's really trying to be shady about anything, but I also make it real clear that I do work with the Division of Wildlife easily. You know, I've helped them as much as
Right.
they've helped me and stuff.
Well, it's good for the resource, but it's good for your livelihood and your professional business too.
It's nice to have them here.
Yeah.
I love when Zach or Bob come by to check a lion in or whatever. I like them being here.
Yeah.
You know, I got nothing to hide or anything like that, you know, so it's good to have 'em. Some of the hunters, I think, get a little nervous sometimes about it, just because they're afraid they might have screwed up. They didn't screw up.
Yeah.
They're just, maybe they haven't done it.
I was in Gunnison a couple of years ago, and I saw some guys that were trying to take a couple animals out of the back of the truck and take it to a meat processing place, and we overheard them. It's like, well, we ought to wait till the game warden leaves.
Oh,
And it's like, well, maybe I should stick around and watch this then,
Yeah.
because
oh yeah, right.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, I had Bob in here one day, and I don't want to mention any names or anything, but Bob was in here, and there was a guy in here that he had busted, pretty good bust. And they were literally in here laughing about it. They were talking to each other. Like,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean,
He
it
ain't
was,
more than the guy.
I'm sitting over here in the corner, kind of hiding a little bit, and I'm like, oh my God, where's this going to go? And I mean, they're literally laughing, talking to each other about the whole way the whole thing went down and everything. I was like, oh my God.
You screwed
Glad
up.
we,
You got,
glad we can laugh
yeah,
about it.
you screwed up.
Yeah.
You got caught. And,
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's exactly what it was. And, you know, and the guy's kids still hunt, you know, all that stuff. And he shoots pretty straight, you know. But it was just funny to have it going on in here. I'm like, oh my God, where's this going? You know, but it was all lighthearted.
You get a lot of military guys.
Tons, a lot. Yeah, I have a guy who actually sends a bunch of the 10th group guys from Fort Carson on hunts every year, and it's a lot of hunts. I think there was 12 or 15 turkey hunts, and then he sends a bunch of cow hunts and some management stuff. I mean, they're not high dollar hunts, but more than I spend.
But the military guys, some might be permanent residents of Colorado, but some might, you know, they might be a military residence in Colorado.
Most of them, I think, are just military
Are they?
residents. Yeah, some of them live here, but they're all 10th group guys. They're kind of settled in here for the most part. I haven't run into that whole residency problem or anything like that. No, they're I mean, they all tell you they're in the military, so we know the rules on that, you know, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
Those guys are stationed here. They should have residency as far as I'm concerned. It's the military told them you're moving.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have to wait a year to have to hunt.
Exactly.
You know? But they're all great guys. But yeah, we do a lot of military stuff.
So you got customers that are regular customers for decades now.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Guys,
Since when I first started.
you
Because
got,
when Gary retired, a lot of them came here.
they came to you.
Yeah.
You got any guys that have a problem that, like, they're, you know, that Jeff Foxworthy deal, you know, you're a redneck when your taxidermy bill is more than your cost of living. And I mean, you get,
Yeah, we have some wives get a little grumpy. I'm convinced, this is a joke. I'm convinced Jason Whitaker's wife doesn't like me. because of the bill that he pays her. I'm pretty convinced. But I say that jokingly. She's a sweet lady.
Yeah, no, then they're great people.
Oh,
And then speaking of the Whitakers, you know, they donated the mountain lion hunt that was to benefit the Save the Hunt campaign that we did. And you got that lion here because
beautiful cat.
you donated the mount
Yeah.
as for the recipient of that raffle. Have you talked to that guy at all?
Yeah, he's. You know, I couldn't be happier for the person who won that hunt.
Isn't that amazing?
Of all the people that could have won that hunt, I could not think of a better one. Those people were so nice, and so like when they brought the lion up here, they were still trying to pay me for it. You know, well, we want to do this, we want to do this. I said, there's no restrictions. I went into this with no restrictions. You guys were huge in this. And they're still, well, can I pay for the skull? Can I pay? No, 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 you can't. But honestly, they're two of the greatest people I've ever met. They had so much fun in here when they were here, because we were going over stuff, and we had a bunch of good stuff mounted in here and stuff. But
and Josh and Jason, when we conversed after they got those guys, and they hunted quite a bit. I mean, it
wasn't one and done.
It wasn't worth, like what is alluded to that anybody was drinking beer driving up to the tree and then turn around and do it. They hunted their asses off. Yeah. But the Whitaker boys had said you couldn't have asked for a better client.
Yeah.
They would turn around and bring on.
They were great. I mean, I really like them. I really like them a lot. But we're hopefully, I'm gonna put myself on the spot right here. I'm hoping that lion will be done at Outdoorsman's Days and we'll be on the stage.
Well, that'd be cool.
That's what I'm hoping for. I don't have the hide back yet, but once I do, I'm gonna work on that. I'd really like that. That way we can say, hey, this is what this guy won in this raffle.
Exactly.
You know, not only the experience, but this too.
Yeah.
You know, the memory for a lifetime kind of thing. So I'm really excited.
And we appreciate not only the support that you've been willing to give, but the interaction as well, because losing lion hunting in the state of Colorado not only would have adversely affected you, it would have set a tone and a narrative and a precedent for what could possibly affect you at many other things.
Yeah, we were honest with ourselves before the vote on that. And my wife and I had sat down and we were trying to figure out a new 5 and 10 year plan if that passed, because I think 10 years would have been the most before we were struggling to even make it, because without the lion hunting, I can't even imagine. I mean, it's any of the new guys. I mean, COVID ran out a lot of the new guys coming up, you know, and luckily I was established by then, so it wasn't too bad of a deal, because there were several guys that had popped up for that, and they just, after COVID, they just couldn't make it work. So there'd be a bunch of them dropping after that. You know, and it's going to trickle down to every species.
Well, I made the comment at the Rocky Mountain Bighorn Society banquet in 2024 during the heart of the campaign, when I said, keep in mind that there's less bighorn sheep, mountain goat, and moose hunters in the state of Colorado than there is lion hunters combined. And then in 2 weeks before the election last year in October, the Cats Aren't Trophies manager came out and said, we need to get rid of the bighorn sheep trophy hunters and the elk trophy hunters and the moose trophy hunters. So everybody kept thinking I was BSing over that whole campaign about, well, they're after this and this and this. When they actually said it, the last part of the campaign and the money that came in, because it was like I was prophesizing of what was the eventual ultimate goal of what they were trying to do. Get rid of lions, let's go after the other stuff.
That's just low-hanging fruit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to go, because you're going to pull the heartstrings on that one. Then you're going to go after the bighorn sheep, say, why are we shooting our state
animal?
And then why are we shooting mountain goats? They're not hurting anybody. There's not too many.
Why are we shooting moose? Because the wolves need to eat something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. No, but that's where it goes, right? I mean, tinfoil hat again. It all breaks down. And the fact that they say things, I mean, they literally say out loud, some people, they want you reliant on them for everything you do in your life. And that's what they're doing as they trickle that stuff.
Look at the guns, look at the wildlife management, look at the access, look at the public or private land use, look at so many things. Yeah. Look at Initiative 82 that is being circulated now.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this one because
Yeah.
That's some crazy stuff.
Because I just talked to Mike Powell this morning, and you know, he's like, well, it was brought to my attention this has to do with private land and public land and
Yeah, that was
domestic
my question,
It's
too.
all of it. It's every single component of it. And if it's allowed to get on the ballot, and we have to go through an education campaign to the general public to say none of this we can't have any of this. It's going to be a bigger fight, and I said this on the Go Hunt podcast a couple of weeks ago. That will make the 127 campaign look like a Girl Scout
Yeah, I
cookie
heard
set.
that. I heard that.
I mean,
that's kind of scary.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, and then you see where the funding's coming from is what's annoying. Because as far as I'm concerned, now, luckily we can do the same thing, so it's not that. But initiatives like this that come up that affect only one state, that money should only come from that one state, not billions of dollars coming from God knows what.
Well, and the kicker is 82% of all our money generated was from non-residents.
Right.
To
No,
fight-
that's what
fight-
I'm saying.
Yeah. And so,
And that shouldn't be either.
well, no, but to make the even playing field, we had to be able to turn around and do that.
Have to.
Well, the interesting thing is there was more people that had a vested interest that were non-residents in the state of Colorado than had residents. And so when you look at the people that apply here, the people that live here, recreate here, know somebody here, come on vacation here, have business interest here, they have value to be able to gain. The antis, their value is to take it away no matter what state it is, and doesn't matter whether
And
they're
if
recreate or
they lose, there's nothing off of them,
No.
you know.
We lose once.
Yeah, we lose once and it's all over,
Yeah.
fellas, because you're never going to get it back. You don't get that stuff back.
No.
You know. And that's where, I mean, it's just, I don't know. That's where it gets frustrating for me. I really get irritated by it because I know that there's billionaires that hunt our state. Literal billionaires. I donated and gave more money than some of those gave to that campaign, and they come here to hunt. And when you figure, I think we talked about numbers one time, there's like, what, 500,000 people that hold some point or some preference point in the state for whatever species, and we have a hard time raising money. We should have so much money that they wouldn't even think of putting this on the ballot. That's what's irritating.
Well, when guys are spending $50 a preference point, or non-residents $100 a preference point,
Right.
to buy an imaginary thing that sits there in perpetuity until they somewhat get some sort of a preference to draw.
Exactly.
The argument that I had during the campaign, and we talk about the selfishness, is if you're going to kick $50 into this, or if you're going to kick $100 into that, just so you have an extra opportunity for maybe drawing a license, but next year you don't draw and you buy another point, and the year after that you don't draw any. Okay, how about kicking a couple $100 to the campaign so we can make sure that you can apply for points?
That's my point. I mean, what good is your high dollar, no offense, Kuyu gear, Sitka gear, all that stuff? You don't have anything to hunt. It's all for nothing. You know, like I have enough guns. I don't trust me, I'm still gonna buy some. But I have enough guns.
Before Senate Bill 003 takes effect.
I have enough gear. I have all the gear I need. I don't need new stuff. My money's going to this because I don't have anything if I don't have that.
And it's not just your livelihood, it's what you believe in,
everything.
it's your life.
It's everything. It may be our survival one day if you really look at it hard. You know, and that resource needs to be there. I mean, yeah, it is our livelihood. I suppose I could go do something else if I had to.
Then go back to the state,
Yeah.
work for Governor Polis.
No thanks. Oh, that's a whole nother story. But no, I mean, but that is how it breaks down in the end if we lose it. This will trickle down to nothing. Then we can't even hardly get an elk or a deer tag to go hunting, but that plays right into their ultimate goal. And it falls into the same thing for me. Anything on the political spectrum is, why do you feel like you have to control other people's lives? You don't have to do it. We're not asking you to do it.
No.
You know, so I just don't get it. It's frustrating.
You mentioned an interesting thing, that you kicked in more money as a taxidermist.
I had 15,000 in it.
Yeah. And
With donations
yeah.
and all that.
When you had people coming in here during the month of August, September, and October before last year's election, was there much of a conversation about any of that?
There was quite a bit. There was parts that were great you know, because I got to talk to people and tell them what was actually good. Thank you for updating us.
Yeah.
Because we were having meltdowns in here, trust me. So thank you for the updates. But some people would come in and they're just like, oh, you know, I hope it doesn't happen, blah, blah. And I would give them your flyer. And I think the majority of them would go donate something. But then I had other comments that were a little bit frustrating in that they would just simply say something like, well, I'm glad I already shot one.
I know.
God, it's not about that. It's not about that at all. One, it's not about you at all. This is about all of us. Two, somebody else hasn't got to do that yet. Three, you're not going to have nothing else left to hunt. So it's not about that. It's not about that at all. You know, you should, whether you do it or not, you should have the right to do it again. You know, for whatever reason.
Well, and if you had a guy standing here, and of course I've worked in taxidermy shops before. I've been in business for 40 years. It's hard for me now to shut up when I don't need to talk, but I know when I shouldn't talk. According to some people, I
haven't learned that yet.
Yeah, yeah. Now, some people never think that I should ever talk. But if I had a guy standing here and brought $1,100 deer head in, I would ask, what have you kicked in? Or if he's bringing a $7,000 life-size mount, what have you kicked in?
Yeah.
Because my belief would be that if they don't have the wherewithal to turn around and kick in 10% of what they're trying to do for the mount, do they really care about the overall goal of what we're trying to do for sustainable wildlife populations in the North American model?
Yeah.
And it's hard because I went through all of that without having a taxidermy shop for people to come into. But the amount of people that would see us during our campaign rallies and everything that we're doing, well, I wish you luck. I'm sorry, but you're going to lose another one. And just the defeatist attitude that went through that. And I bring up the defeatist attitude because hunters as a whole, for the most part, don't have a defeatist attitude.
Right.
But when it comes to the politics of side.
Yeah, well, our past hasn't been the greatest though, right? We lost the bears, we lost the trap. And so, but we also didn't have you and your association, all that was really fighting it really hard. I think that's more when you got involved. But it was small.
Yeah.
You know, our movement's growing every day. And from a business aspect, I would have too hard of a time asking somebody, what have you contributed? It was more of a like, hey, this is going on. We need as much help as we can get. I can't believe we're having a hard time raising as much money as we need. It was kind of a maybe passive aggressive, you know, but I mean, I always said something about it.
Did you find anybody that had no idea that any of it was going on?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, and that's even worse.
I know.
Right? Because you're here hunting and you're like, or they would come in and they'll be like, so I just heard the other day that this is going on. Like, just the other day. We're about to vote in 10 days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of, I don't know. I guess you can't get the word to everybody, but you'd think if they're in this world, they would kind of know.
But that's, I think, one of the things that was most concerning to me is people that were actively engaged in the entire process of acquiring a license, preparing for the hunt, scouting your area, figuring out where you're going to go and what you're going to do and how you're going to get there, and worry about what you're doing next year already because, you know, that whole process is cyclical, and then not have a clue of what was going on to be able to take things away behind the scenes.
Yeah. I mean, all that is a little bit frustrating, but I think it's just because I don't understand enough of it. You wouldn't think it'd be that hard to get the word out. You know, like, how many podcasts did you do? How many commercials did you do? How much social media are you on? And there's still those people that hunt that still didn't know it was going on. You know,
and it was going to dramatically affect you or guys like the Whip.
Oh yeah,
or
that's
any
where the
outfitter.
frustration came from, because it's like, this matters for a lot of us, you know, and it wasn't even if you were an outfitter, or maybe you're a taxidermist that doesn't do lions, maybe you're an outfitter that doesn't hunt lions. Doesn't matter. It's still going to affect you in a very short amount of time, because you figure, what, 500 times 50. And that's not including the females, they're kittens that kill even more. You know, how many deer is that a year?
And we already
5,000.
We already
I don't know what the math is, but 25,000 a year. when we only have how many, it's going to get eaten up pretty quick.
Do you think that do you do any work for somebody that's never done anything hunting wise to consider this and calls you up and says, my kid just caught a 5-pound trout, I want to get it mounted?
Mm-hmm.
What do you tell them?
I tell them I don't do fish, but I refer them to someone who does, and I just tell them, call them right away, and they'll tell you how they want it preserved, because it's different from taxidermist to taxidermist.
But the level of excitement.
Oh, I'm excited for them. Trust me.
Yeah.
Oh, great job. You know, it's always that kind of thing. Thanks for, you know, whatever. But I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's always good to see new people getting involved in it, whether it is just fishing, because it's all the same money, right? And it's all the same CPW managing it, and all of that matters, you know, because if you have good over here, you're going to have better over here, or whatever the case is, you know, especially the way the money gets tossed around, wasted, whatever the case, you know, but
where it goes.
But yeah, like
it's
I get new people every year. Every year it's their first time.
And they're excited about it.
Oh, and that excitement it's literally electric in here. We love it when they come in like that. And we love it when they come here and take it home. You know, like this guy over here with this shoulder mount sheep, he was in here the other day, and his excitement is why I do it. You know, he gave me free run. I've only had a handful of people just tell me do what I want. One was Cam Haynes. He really doesn't care. He's just like, do your thing, lets me do it. He let me do it. I don't get it a lot, but when I do, it's great. And then they see it and they love it. That's why I do this.
That's
You know,
cool.
But it's my art. You know, I get to put my art in everybody's house.
Do you ever get to a point to where you feel like, oh, I've got more sheep to do, or I'd like to break it up, and I got to get to some of those mountain lions because I'm sick and tired of looking at elk heads or whatever?
Yeah, we do them in runs a
Yeah.
lot of times. It's better to do a bunch of the same species for a while, just because you get tuned up and you're in that mode, you know.
Then you get tired of it.
Some of these, yeah, trust me, you get tired of working on elk, period, just because they're big. You're wrestling them around. You know, we have so much wall space. Then you're usually waiting on the shipper, so they're sitting all over here, and you know, you could almost be a prize fighter after here, the way you're ducking and dodging horns in here and stuff. You know, you could probably slip a pretty good punch. But it gets a little crazy, so we got to take a break from certain things for a little while.
I remember when I was in the business as a kid, I never ever saw, and probably for 20 years, I never saw detachable horns.
Yeah, those are getting more and more, but they are nice.
Yeah.
For one, it does cost you money to do them because it's labor. But once they're done, that elk's easier to hang on the wall. It's cheaper to ship it because those shippers give a discount if the horns come out because it saves room in their trailer.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that's getting more and more, especially things like moose.
Oh, yeah.
Elk and moose, pinned horn. I'm doing detachable horns all the time.
Are you?
Yeah.
And what's that? How much does that increase? Is it 20% higher? Or?
No, it's like $200.
Is it?
$100
Yeah.
inside,
Which is reasonable.
Well, to me, and then the shipper usually gives you $100 discount. So you're really only paying for one side, and then it's just convenience. Go through any door. You can hang it on the wall easier, put the horns on after. It's really convenient. Really convenient.
They're doing a lot of that stuff on the African stuff when they ship it over to the
Yeah, they'll do. Yeah.
They get a bunch in a box.
Well, you think about it, Africa, they're all spikes.
Yeah.
You know, they got big horns, but they're all spikes. They're easy to do. You know, you're not worried about much of that. But yeah, I mean, you want to do it because when you're shipping a crate all the way from South Africa, you want that crate to be as small as it can be.
Yeah.
Period.
Do you do much African stuff?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Fair share.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot of leopards. Got a few African lions to do. Have plenty of plains game, you know. It's been on a slight hold the last few years because of all the USDA stuff. I'm getting a little nervous. I've had one leopard that's been in Africa for 3 years.
Really?
So I'm getting a little nervous about that one. But yeah, I mean, we get lots from over there. Lions are loosening up finally a little bit. I'll have a couple of those to do. But yeah, I mean, we're getting stuff from all over the world. We're getting a lot coming from New Zealand.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because they're tied in with the Hill Ranch. So
Oh, yeah.
same guys. bringing some of those over. I have some sheep. Well, I've got the world record snow sheep in here right now from Russia.
Really?
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I got some Marco Polos that'll make their way here eventually.
Snow sheep, is that similar to the
It's basically a short-faced bighorn
Okay.
sheep. Yeah, I mean, but the body looks like a bighorn sheep. Horns are more like a doll sheep.
Okay.
Pretty cool animal.
Yeah.
I mean, real short-faced and stuff. They're definitely unique, but it's cool. It's supposed to, in fact, a guy's coming Friday to score. It's supposed to be the world record.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know that. It shrunk a lot because they have to do so much dipping and treatment and stuff over there. Because I think there's such weird laws because we don't deal with Russia very good right now. So it went from Russia to Poland. Poland like took care of it all, got the hide ready, and all that. Then it shipped from Poland and somehow came here through China. So there's a whole lot of nervousness around something like that. I don't know what that cost to hunt, but I'm sure it wasn't cheap.
Yeah.
And then being that it should be supposedly it's number one by a ways.
Oh, big deal.
So we'll find out on Friday.
So we're sitting in front of a recent first place trophies.
Yeah, these are my mounts from the our state taxidermy competition that was just in Gunnison this weekend, and they're all I won. So the life size ram won first place and best to category in the Masters large life size. The shoulder mount sheep was first place. It got beat by a buddy of mine who did an open mouth deer, so I didn't win the whole category. And then the lion and deer won best game head non-antlered for the lion. The deer, I just kind of phoned it in. Both those hides were falling apart, so I had to come up with something real creative, but it ended up winning a bunch of artistic awards too. And the taxidermist choice best of show of the entire show, it won that.
Oh, it did.
Just didn't.
Congratulations.
It didn't win the judges.
Yeah.
Won the taxidermist. So.
But that's a unique
Yeah.
mount.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a lot of motion to it. That's the only mount I've ever named in my life. I named it Immortalized, just kind of in.
It almost looks like a partial bronze.
Yeah, the theory was it's turning into a bronze because we're immortalizing the fight, right? And I went through a bunch of research. I was checking Greek sculptures, Roman sculptures, and finally I was just like, nah, that needs to be like a Teddy Roosevelt bronze. So that's what I went with.
Oh, that's
it's pretty cool. It's patinaed and everything, but it's all hand painted.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's impressive.
It's all sculpted out of Bondo and then
Really?
hand painted bronze. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And you have a piece like that would take approximately how many hours?
You don't even want it.
That's why you're behind.
I've been working. No, I actually did the majority of that mount a few years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I had a different mount I was going to do for the show and it fell through. And then they had created a new artistic award. So I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And they were originally both supposed to be life size, but the deer hide's like 10 years old and that lion hide was 14 years old and they were just starting to fall apart. So I cut it down to the half mounts and put them in a different category.
Did you expect to win at that level? Or you just...
I won the award. I went there to win.
Did you?
Yeah, so I was pretty proud of that. That's what. Yeah, it was a whole new idea. Nobody had ever seen it. I think most of the people there liked it because most of them voted for it. So I won that award by a high number of votes. So yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's cool.
And plus, it's mine, so it gets to stay here.
Yeah.
Usually I'm sending like the other two sheep. They're somebody else's, so they got to go home.
So what does Doug and his wife like to hunt?
Elk mainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our main thing.
Archery or rifle?
We're all rifle hunters.
Yeah.
I archery hunted for a lot of years, but I have a hurt shoulder that I re-hurt again in the Army, stuff like that. So I can't really even pull a bow back anymore. So plus I don't get a lot of time.
Yeah.
You got to dedicate to archery hunting. And I don't have enough time to dedicate. Not that I can't practice and shoot good. That's not it. It's just the days of getting out and hunting. I know what it takes. I've hunted public land my entire life. I know what it takes to kill something with a bow on public land. and it's not easy.
Yeah.
And I don't have the time. So we rifle hunt. We pick the 2 5-day seasons. I'm hunting first rifle this year. She's hunting fourth rifle, and that's the time we get. We hunt hard for 5 days on both ends, and that's just really all we can dedicate to it. We take a trip. We went to Alaska a couple years ago. A friend of mine, shout out Jonas Stewart. He has a cabin up out of Anchorage, about a 45-minute flight out of Anchorage. He let us stay at his cabin where we hunted moose. Horrible weather, so we didn't do real well, but bears and that. And so we'll take a trip like that here and there. I put in hunt a javelina down in Arizona. It's hard for me to hunt Colorado because that's our busy time. You know, somebody has to be in the shop. So usually we try to go somewhere out of state or somewhere off season, you know. So like there's not that many hunters out first and fourth.
Right.
Like those are the smaller seasons. Plus you're not getting deer in. So second and third, you're swamped because that's when all the deer are coming in. So we try to stick to the ends when they're not even hunting deer. And then we try to branch out and go somewhere else. New Mexico, Arizona. But I mean, you're all limited on your draw then.
Ever done any foreign stuff?
No, we've never been out of the country to
No.
hunt. No.
Have any aspirations to do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like anybody else. I'd like to see Africa at some point. You know, I don't know what I want to do there.
Yeah.
You know, I'd really like to go for a leopard, but they're expensive.
Yeah, they're expensive.
You know, 30,000 I think is kind of the low end right now, and not that I can't do it. I could do it, but I can do a lot of hunting for $30,000. So I would really like. I mean, they're such a cool animal, you know. But even if I just went on a photo safari.
Well, there's guys over there that have been 3, 4, 5 times that haven't harvested a leopard, or what they.
You got to take that into consideration too.
You know,
not even seen one.
Yeah. Our good friend Brett Axon is one of those guys. I mean, he's going back again, and he just hasn't had the right things work out. And then I've known other guys that have gone over once and then got lucky and harvested.
Well, that's how that one I've been waiting on for 3 years. I think he shot it the second day.
Really?
Of a 14-day hunt, you know. What it turned out good for him because then he got to go. They had a bunch of leftover Cape buffalo tags. So I don't think it cost him a whole lot, and he got to shoot 4 or 5 more Cape buffalo, you know, because they got to shoot however many off those concessions to keep numbers right. And he was there towards the end of the year, so it worked out great for him. Yeah, I think it's kind of that, and you can luck into that stuff. Sometimes you get lucky, you get an extra animal or whatever the case is, you know. Some of it, it's like, I don't know, like one of the things. I personally don't ever want to shoot an African lion. It's just my thing. But I understand why they do it. You know, they have certain numbers, and that was one. I have a friend that he's a taxidermist also, and he's close with some guys over there. And when our beloved USDA wouldn't let the lions in, they were just having to cull lions because nobody would go hunt them because they couldn't bring them back. And literally grown men in tears because they have to wipe out entire prides of lions for no reason at all, you know, just to fill number quotas. Horrible. I don't know where, like, we wouldn't accept them making our wildlife laws, but yet we're making them for them.
Yes.
You know, it just doesn't.
Well, Sean just got back from Africa and was filming for a guy. What, you been back 2 weeks or something? Filming for a guy on an elephant hunt over there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think it was just because you don't have a mic on right now, but I think that the experience and the eye-opening experience about how things actually work.
Oh yeah.
In Africa.
Yeah.
Is different perspective of what people allude to when they're here.
Well, if you guys don't follow her, everybody needs to follow Sue Tidwell.
Oh yeah.
On Instagram.
Yeah.
Because her heart and soul is in Africa.
Yeah.
And the information and Robbie too with blood organs, they do a lot over there too. And if you don't follow those two people, you really need to. Especially, I mean, most people, I think, and anybody who follows you follows Robbie.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But Sue's another one. You know, read her book, Cries of the Savannah. Some of this stuff's heart-wrenching. what those people go through and have to deal with animals because we've decided to not let them in our country is
Right.
ridiculous. There's literally people dying from elephants. They talk, another one my friend was telling me about when they were showing pictures when their elephant numbers were manageable, and then to now, there was literally 2 foot of grass on the ground, and now it's nothing but dust. I mean, it's horrible.
We saw
Look,
that.
we
saw
all
that with
get the
trees.
Dumbo thing, right?
Yeah.
Like the poor elephant and all that. But it goes back to the teddy bear thing too. And like, you just have the wrong idea of how these animals actually are. Elephants are so dangerous. I'm surprised people even live in those areas, except for they're so dang poor they can't go anywhere else. But yet they got to deal with the decisions we're making.
When we went to Africa in 1999, and I took Ethan and Karen along with Brett and a bunch of other people, and we were touring in Kruger National Park, and we ran into some, what we just thought were like, you know, game wardens, but there was a truckload, Army truckload full of guys that once we got the information out of them, they were culling elephants in the national park, in the Kruger National Park.
Yeah, they can do it in there, but you can't do it outside.
Yeah, and because and I said, how do you do that? And they said, because if we don't, there won't be any other wildlife here, because the elephants will stomp and eat and tear apart everything.
Exactly.
We saw things that and maybe Sean saw something similar, but you'd come through this great big open plain where they have the great big trees, and it looked like a windstorm came through, and there would be no trees.
Them over.
They just push them over, like
crazy.
like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres of them.
Yeah.
And there was those trees. Some of those trees were 300, 400, 500 years old, and they're gone.
Right.
Well, that doesn't sound like that big of a deal to somebody unless you rely on those trees.
Yeah, exactly.
To be able to live for the human side of things.
Right.
And so, yeah, I would imagine that the people that you get come from a variety of different backgrounds when it comes to Africa.
Yeah.
But the ultimate resolve, or the end to that whole process, is the people that are there benefit more than what people would ever think that they would benefit.
Oh, and especially just on the meat end of it.
Yeah, Sean saw that.
You know, with the elephant, they bring a whole village in to break those things down.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, oh, he's shooting and he's not taking it home. Well, what are you going to do? You know, but how many villages are living off?
What did you say, 700 meals or so?
700 people in the village. It feeds them for a month. There's 15 tags for that village.
Wow.
Feeds them for a year. They have no food.
Just
no
elephants.
feed otherwise.
That is
on. Can't farm there because of
the elephants, right? Yeah. That is
So a year's worth of feed off of 15 elephants for 700 people.
That's insane. Wow.
I
never knew that.
Talk about a food
That's
bank.
crazy. Wow.
It's like,
Yeah. Well, and then, they always play off that, well, elephants the numbers are so far down. Yeah, right there. But you go up there and they're overpopulated by 300%. You can't move an elephant.
no.
They tried that. It didn't work. It was so costly. It just doesn't make sense. Feed the village.
Well, and
That works.
when we find out about wolves and mountain lions and bears, you can move things to some degree, but not when you have an expected optimum results. When you have 6 million people in a state, that we often say 84 million visitors, things don't work like what you want them to. They're going to work like they need to, and oftentimes that is to the detriment of the individual species or to the people that are having to work and live around it.
Yeah, but so you take that into example. All the wolves that are now in Colorado were running free in British Columbia.
In Oregon.
Born there, Oregon, wherever they're from, right? Now look what they're in. So how are they thinking when one of those gets killed? It's just collateral damage?
Yeah.
How sick is that? That animal was wild and running around. When we already had wolves naturally migrating down here, they went and ripped them out of everything they knew and put them into a load of trouble.
So 6 million people.
Your thinking is so screwed up if you're doing.
And I think that brings into the conversation of from what you've seen from a wildlife management perspective and what's been going on for the last 8 or 10 or 12 years. Can you synthesize in a shorter paragraph than I'm asking this, how did we get to where we're at? And where do you think it's going to go based upon what you see and how you're involved in the industry?
Well, everything that I've seen, I've watched everything grow to a great number. We have more moose, they were thriving. I thought our management was working. I think numbers prove that. And then now they just busted it all to pieces. And all that happened, that whole rise was through management, but it was also through sportsman's dollars. Think about the moose. What a success story the reintroduction of the moose was. Those numbers, like, I'm pretty sure I just saw Steve Ranella saying the other day, I think we have the best moose population in the lower 48 right now. That's all sportsman's dollars from us hunting, us donating, us buying the raffle tickets. It's all from us. And then what do you think's going to go first with these wolves? It's going to be the moose.
Oh yeah.
Because they're solitary and they can't run that fast.
And they're big, and if you get
pack worth of food.
Yeah, there's a pack worth of food. Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know, I kind of sit on that argument too, like, and maybe you'd agree on this, I don't know. They brought the wrong wolves here. We're more likely to have like the New Mexico wolf in Colorado originally than these giant moose killers from Canada. So to me, like, you look at Alaska, just take Alaska or northern Canada, and you see these packs of 10 and 12 wolves. Nothing can survive that. There's not an animal out there that can survive that, from a bison to a moose to anything. Down here, you're talking about decimation. One Canadian moose or Alaskan moose is 3 elk. Think of how fast your numbers are going to go. It's going to be fast if we don't get it.
Well, look at the damage that's been going on with the Mexican gray wolf in New Mexico, and how people are talking about the livestock depredation, and even the regular ungulate populations. Yeah. And look, I think everybody could agree that we're not anti-wolf.
No, not at all.
I'm anti-ballot box biology, making it available for public people, uneducated public people, to make decisions on a variety of different things.
Right.
It's not just about wildlife, it's about water, it's about our natural resources. And we all might have an opinion, but that doesn't mean that we ought to have the ability to be able to check the box, yes or no, on behalf of an entire species, which then is affected or affects multiple other species.
Absolutely.
And I think that while we have the greatest model of wildlife management on the planet, other countries have figured out that they've screwed it up so bad that they're trying to adapt things that are better, but they're not reintroducing things by public opinion.
No, not at all. They're doing it the way you need to do it.
Exactly.
By science. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. In the fact, like, we can hunt bears in Colorado, yes, but without the use of dogs and without being able to bait them, to me, that's an unmanaged animal, because you can't take enough numbers to help the way you need to. Like, how many bears are killed in a year? 400?
No, it's about 1,500.
1,500. Still, you should probably be doing double that.
Yeah, especially when your population is tripled.
And especially year to year. And that's where I think you take some of your management out of your own hands, because Colorado works off a 5-year plan, right? Well, what if you have a really bad drought, and you had a poor bear harvest the year before? You need to be able to adjust those numbers where you can knock that.
Not just by over-the-counter sales or applying for something.
It has to be now in an emergency type of situation. At least give yourself that power to where you can say, okay, so we shoot 14 or 1,500. That seems like a good number. But say you only killed 1,000 last year, and now you're up into a drought year. Maybe you need to be shooting that extra 400 this year to be able to even it out, but they take that out of their hands too, because we can't shoot them before September 1st. We can't hunt them in the spring. Spring's when we should be hunting them, if you want to do the true numbers. And if you want to stop from shooting the sows with cubs, that's the time to not shoot them. When those cubs are right on her hip. You know what you're shooting in the fall. You don't have a clue what you're shooting. Those bears might be off underneath the leaves somewhere and you can't tell. They've proven through studies that whether that cub loses its mom in the spring or the fall, that cub still dies. So why not do it when you can tell if that cub's actually there or not, as opposed to him being that little adolescent thing out there screwing around 150 yards from his mom or whatever. And that's just the stuff you take out of your hands anytime you put something on the ballot and vote with initiative, because you don't even have the flexibility or the gray area to work in. It's just solid. It's a solid line, and you can't manage that way. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You always have to be flexible.
Think if they did that sort of management by public opinion on bighorn sheep, or if we get to the point of mountain goats and moose.
Oh, you just won't have it.
No.
They're just, no, you're not going to do that.
And I joke about this, and I don't think it's that far of a joke. I believe that if somebody stood out in front of Walmart to get citizens' signatures to ban elk hunting and deer hunting in the state of Colorado, they would get enough signatures to get it on the ballot. Now, I don't think it would pass,
Right.
and the agency at that point in time would have to draw a line in the sand, in my opinion, to say, holy cow, our entire livelihood and our funding source is going to be gone if we don't chime in on this.
Right.
But just think if they could actually do that, like what they've tried in Washington and California
Yeah.
and Oregon and what they're doing in other states about different species. If we continually go down that road, the management side is the most important. I don't give a rat's ass about Doug Barnes and Ovis Wildlife Taxidermy. I don't care about Dan Gates and Colorado Recruitment. I don't care about the Hill Ranch or any of the other outfitters, because I really do care about the wildlife. However, we're all here, and I want to make sure that we're appropriately taken care of, and our ability to maintain and manage wildlife in perpetuity for the reason that it's there, and it's there, in my belief, for humans to utilize, not abuse, not to turn around and extirpate, but to utilize. And for the people that don't believe that, they don't believe that we should have leather shoes, and they don't believe that we should have gasoline cars, and they don't believe, for the most part, that we should have cattle and chickens and hogs and goats. There's a different ideology there, and I'm in the camp of people first, as long as we are not bastardizing and abusing the resource.
Every species is their species first, right?
Yes.
I mean, elk are breeding to make more elk, deer are breeding to make more deer. We're trying to survive as a species, and there's only one way you can do that, and that's to eat. You know, so if they're taking that resource away from you and making you eat your Impossible Burger that's full of glyphosate and every other thing, making a customer for life because you need cancer drugs and all that stuff. To me, it all
he's into this.
it all seriously goes back to the same thing, though. They're just trying to control a food source.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. And it's not that they've openly said it. So it's not like I'm making this up. I mean, they've literally openly said it.
Well, listen to Wayne Pacelli when he was with HSUS years ago. Our goal is to stop all hunting.
Yeah, in every state, state by state.
Yeah, doesn't matter what species, doesn't matter what method.
Doesn't matter what it is.
Stop it.
And why?
Yeah, and
Why?
it's just,
You're telling me he's healthy?
well, yeah, look at him.
Yeah,
You know.
I have looked at it.
Yeah.
No, I don't think health is his number one thing, you know, but I don't know.
I don't think logic is his number one thing, but I don't
That's
think,
for sure.
I think that a lot of the people don't fully understand the background of what we have and how we got to where we have it. We just want to turn around and make sure that we continue to have it for the remainder, not just our lives, but your kids or grandkids or whoever else has whatever. We just have to figure out a way to be able to sustain that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's going to get tougher all the time, and unfortunately our state just keeps going further and further to the left. So if you can't nip this stuff now,
Were you surprised at what we did last election?
A little, if I'm being honest, yeah. I thought it was going to be razor tight, and it was not. So I think you guys ran a fantastic campaign. Once you explained some of it to me, it was a little bit easier because, you know, you see the commercials and all this stuff on their side, and they're just not targeting. They're just, you know, they're just broadcasting.
Yeah.
You know, and
They're fertilizing to see what grows.
yeah, and I'm sure it's effective in its own way, But I think, you know, polling and target audiences and all that stuff, I think you guys did a fantastic job, because honestly, you guys saved our livelihood. I'm fully convinced of that.
Thanks.
I think we had, like I said, we were working on a 5 to 10 year plan, and I wasn't looking too good about the 10-year plan when I was being honest with myself, you know. So, I mean, honestly, if I look at my workload, if you fired me today, I've got 3 years notice, you know. So I figured we had at least that. I figured 5 before the animals start really going downhill, and by 10 we were going to be playing hell to do something from the state of Colorado. But we were honestly, we were going to shift our business and try to get more African, New Zealand. Like, that's where we were looking at going. It's like, hey, we want your safaris here, you know, kind of thing. Push that, because I don't push African. I do African animals, but I don't push it. That would have been one of the things we had to start pushing, because honestly, that's where your numbers are.
Yeah.
You can do so much hunting in Africa compared to one Alaskan hunt. Like, you can do.
Well, I just went last year during the campaign. You know, Truex and everybody told me there's nothing for you to do, and you'd already booked it during COVID. Just go take advantage of it.
Oh.
And I saw more game there in a 7-day period that I was there than I would see in the state of Colorado in an entire year.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the numbers over there are just incredible. You know, and
we saw bunches of springbucks of 400.
Yeah.
And you'd go to another drainage or another property, and there'd be another 400, and blessed bucks and zebras and giraffes.
Why do you think that is? Why are there numbers? Is it all because it's managed concession-wise?
Well, but not really. I mean, the herd base, I believe, and I'm not a scientist or biologist, but the predator base has a need for that much game. And I think that because of the different dynamics of they're giant herd animals. I mean, everything runs in giant.
Yeah, it's massive.
When I went there in '99 with the family, you know, we would sit on a water hole trying to get Ethan a shot at something.
Sure.
He was 8 years old at that time, and you know, the zebras would come in, but when the zebras came in, the baboons came in, and when the baboons came in, the springbucks came in, and then the impalas came in, and then the wildebeest came. But they were all walking around with each other, looking and
staying, enough eyes.
Yeah, enough eyes, enough ears, enough noses, and there was always giraffes down looking at everything, and we would hear a bird. We didn't know what it was for the first 3 days, and the trackers laughed at us. But you'd hear a bird, and it would say, "Go away."
Really?
And everybody would leave. And they call them go-away birds because, and then all of a sudden, maybe some hyenas would walk out, or maybe a lion would walk out.
Wow.
And it's like everybody's watching out for everybody.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, you see it here. You see a big herd of elk or a big herd of antelope or something, but not in the numbers that there are in areas like that.
No,
I mean, Sean, how many different species did you see when you were there just several weeks ago?
Pretty much everything you could imagine.
Yeah.
Where you're also seeing, I mean, elephants alone, you talk about numbers, we're seeing probably 50 to 100 elephants in it.
Wow, that's a lot.
Everywhere.
That's a lot in any area, right?
Yeah.
50 elephants seems like just a lot.
Yeah. So let's it'd be great to be able to come back and do this as a recap at some point.
Anytime.
Do you have anything that you'd like to talk about in the closing minutes, or get off your chest, or something you'd like to say?
Yeah, I have one thing, and it all stemmed from the Proposition 127 in how difficult it was to raise money. That was really confusing to me. When you start putting numbers together, and I don't know if it was Lorenzo from Go Hunt that said it, but if everybody who held a point in Colorado donated the money of 1 box of bullets.
That was actually Mike Costello.
Okay.
And Lorenzo.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
Yeah.
When you do numbers like that, that is unreal. How much money we don't have. We should literally have $25 million just sitting there. I mean, if you figure 500,000 people donate a $50 box of bullets, we should have, what, $25 million sitting there.
Yeah.
How hard is that to do? I probably have 4,000 rounds of bullets over there. I can't believe that it's that hard. You know, I mean, it doesn't compute.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
It is, especially when you have people pay the money that they pay, that they're willing to pay, like say in a governor's tag for any species, they're all over 60 grand or whatever just to buy one. And you see that type of money get thrown at that, or they're buying raffle. Like, I understand buying raffle tickets, you can get something.
Yeah.
It's fun, you kind of play, maybe you'll win something, right? But we all got to consider that a donation pretty much, you know, because only one person's going to win. But I mean, just think of it like that. $50, right? Someday 10 years down the road, you might be able to still hunt a sheep because we didn't lose. That, I just don't understand why it's that hard. A little 2-person shop, taxidermy shop in Penrose, Colorado, put $15,000 into that. And you have a hard time getting $25 and $50 out of everybody that carries a point in this state. It is hard to fathom. Like,
Try being on the campaign.
no, I can imagine your frustration. I could see it when you would stop by, especially when you'd have those high dollar meetings,
Yeah.
you know, and to see, I don't know if money came in, but maybe it didn't come in that day or whatever.
A lot of it,
That's
a lot of it
gotta
was
be true.
trickling, a lot of it was foot dragging, a lot of it was consternation.
Yeah.
And
And these guys are considering donating a lot more money than I did.
oh yeah,
I'm just saying, we're a little bitty shop here, and I have 15. Now, I do figure my job is directly related to this vote
yeah.
too, so I get that.
Yeah.
But I mean,
but how many times do you think, I mean, unless they're guys part of a union, how many times do people have to donate somewhere to maintain their livelihood? I mean, the Walmart workers aren't.
right.
You know, the guy that's working at the gas
You're
station
talking
doesn't.
$60 a month in union.
Yeah,
somewhere.
you know, and so,
Yeah.
but your point is well taken, because we had so much, you know, enthusiasm and optimism from so many different outlets.
Yeah.
It's the first time I ever thought about initiative.
Mhm.
We done many different things at the legislature and the commission level, and for proactive advocacy, progressive management and direction of trying to get the agency to do something on behalf of species, not behalf of hunters, behalf of species, and it worked out. But to try to get people just to belly up to the bar and say, here's $20.
So
now,
frustrating.
to the thousands of people that did,
Oh, thank you.
thank you.
It's everything.
There's still people that have a reoccurring donation stream
Yeah.
of $20 a week or $20 a month that are coming into the Save the Hunt Colorado.
Thank you so
website.
much for that. Thank
I
you
just
so much.
expected that other people would turn around and say, here's my 50 grand, or here's my 20 grand, or here's my corporation's 100 grand,
Right.
because we have a dedicated interest in this, into wildlife management.
Well, and hopefully you being a 501c3 now,
Yeah.
that will change.
Yeah.
Or at least get better.
Exactly.
Because I do know that opens up a lot for businesses and other people. I do know that will help. And I really hope it does, because I think this is going to be one of those things that's just not going to stop,
No.
you know, and it's just going to be part of our lives now going forward if we want to keep doing what we want to do.
As we said earlier in the conversation, if we lose once, we're done.
Yep.
They know that. If they lose over and over and over, they use that as a fundraising opportunity to expand their message and capitalize on what they think they gained.
If they lose, they don't lose anything.
No.
Their money supply seems to be endless. I can only speculate on where some of that's coming from, but I don't know, because it's that thing, right? You got that box of cereal in your cabinet. You never did open it, but holy smoke, that sucker's empty. How is that? And you find that little mouse hole on the back of it, and he's ate it one at a time. And that's exactly what they're doing here. They're going to grab this. They may take a couple times, but they're going to grab that, and then they're going to grab that one, and it'll all trickle down.
Yeah.
And eventually you're not hunting anything because there's not enough of them.
There's nothing left.
Because our management works. That's what I've never understood. Like, they say they're for the animals. They don't care if there's one left. They just don't want you to hunt any of them. Doesn't matter. Like, that's why I say they're never talking about save the antelope when they have huge die-offs up north.
Oh yeah.
They don't say nothing about that. It's always the predators. because it's a control thing. They're just going to let them do the control so that they're sneaky in the back, pretending it's not them, but it is them. And it just comes down to the same thing. You can get on any spectrum of the political side of it, whether it's abortion or gun rights or whatever. You're still telling somebody else how to live, and that's wrong. We're supposed to be a free people. Now you got to have rules inside that, don't get me wrong, but I'm not telling anybody how to live. I'm not telling you get off your mountain bike or don't drink your microbrew or anything like that. I'm not telling you how to live.
But
why are they telling us?
But the ballot initiative will allow us to do that. So if we really feel that strong,
Yeah, right.
Then
So let's waste everybody's stuff. And yeah, I don't want to play their game. I want to beat them at their game, but I don't really want to play it. We could do the same thing, I guess, right? And just throw something at them that they got to spend a bunch of money to defend. But I don't know. I just want to live and be left alone. But then you have people that feel like they need to control you.
Yeah.
It's annoying. So I thank you guys for your fight, because you guys are really the only ones doing it.
Well,
So
we've got a big team behind us, but
Yeah.
we're still playing in the shallow end, hoping we don't get pushed to the deep end again.
yeah, I know that new one coming up is pretty scary.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're going to take the power out of private land and all that stuff too, you're talking serious.
We have a big hurdle in front of us, and we just got to make sure
Yeah.
we can clear it.
Where are they at in that one? Right.
Initiative 82 is still going through the Legislative Council.
Okay.
If as of when this airs, they probably would not have gone through title board yet. They'll still go through Legislative Council.
And what's like the name of it going to be?
It'll be called the Colorado Wildlife Biodiversity Protection Act. And so that's something for people to pay particular attention to as it moves through the process. And they're going to water it down and refine it and adapt their messaging. But
Well, and you guys will fight and keep some
Oh, yeah.
stuff out.
yeah, as long as we got money.
Well,
You know,
yeah, right. But there we go again,
Yeah.
right? So
Well, look, I mean, if we're welcome to come back at any particular time, you're doing some of our taxidermy work. You're doing some of our cameraman's, Sean Ender's taxidermy work, and appreciate you taking that.
well, and we'll have some of it on display at the Outdoorsman's Days too.
Cool.
We'll definitely have stuff on the stage again, and then if we can figure it out, we might even have a booth.
Okay.
We might set up.
You might do a demo down there too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
odds are, if,
Yeah.
if the division's got something we can do, I'd be
You got
happy
it.
to
Okay.
do it. So
Yeah.
we did the one last time. It seemed to do pretty good.
Yep. August 8th and 9th, Florence, Colorado Outdoorsman Days. Doug Barnes, we appreciate the time. Appreciate you inviting us into your shop and
Absolutely.
and,
Glad to have you guys here.
putting you back another half a day in your
Yeah, right. Like I needed that.
yeah. So
No.
no,
I'm happy to have you guys. It's great.
look forward to it. Any websites you want to name or anything?
You can check out our work. We do have a good backlog right now, but it's just Ovis, Ovis, wildlife.com.
Okay.
We're on, and the only social we're on is Instagram, and it's just at Ovis Wildlife.
Okay.
So
Cool.
it'll come up. I think we got a lot of followers, so a lot of them probably already.
Well, if you want to stay apprised of what you're doing and some of your fancy work and stuff.
Oh no,
cool.
I mean
you know.
I probably don't post enough, but I do post enough that you guys can see what our work is and
Cool.
all that stuff. So, and it's fun. It's just fun. I like talking to people about it. So,
Well, appreciate it.
absolutely.
Stay out of trouble.
No, pleasure.
Thanks, sir. You bet.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Through the Gates. For more content like this, make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe on all of our channels.